counting, swinging. There's a drive into left center field. That ball is going to be out of here. It's gone. It's 7:15.
What a moment. He was one of baseball's all-time greats and one of the sport's most memorable power hitters. Tonight, we are paying tribute to Hammerin' Hank Aaron.
The Hall of Famer and the king of the home run, Hank Aaron, died today at 86 years old. And according to his longtime team, the Atlanta Braves, Aaron died peacefully in his sleep at home.
But his powerful legacy, of course, lives on. As our Aaron Nolan explains, from the minors to the majors to his post-career life, Mr. Aaron was always looking for a home run.
All I was doing was playing baseball.
A man known as Hammering Hank.
All I was doing was just trying to make people, bring a little enjoyment to people.
His career numbers on the baseball diamond made him a Hall of Famer.
And little did I know that there was so much hatred.
But the way he refused to ignore the racial divide made him a legend. February 5th, 1934. Henry Louis Aaron Jr. was born in Mobile, Alabama. By the time he was 18, Aaron was playing pro baseball in the Negro League. In 1953, Aaron broke the color barrier in the South Atlantic League with the Jacksonville Braves. That year, he was also the MVP. The next year, Hank Aaron made his way to the majors with the Milwaukee Braves. He would stay with that organization as it moved from Milwaukee to Atlanta, spending 20 seasons as a Brave. He was a consistent baseball player with a career batting average over 300, more than 3,700 hits, and of course, all those home runs. It was April 8th, 1974. Hank Aaron had 714 career home runs, tying him all-time with Babe Ruth. And as the inevitable got close, Aaron was getting threats because of the color of his skin. So Major League Baseball added security.
I had to have an escort with me all the time. I had to stay with in another hotel aside from my teammates. My kids had to be escorted to school every day. So it was a tough moment, and the toughest part was that I wasn't able to enjoy it.
There's a long drive. Ball's hit deep, deep. It is gone.
His career would continue until 1976 when he retired after 2 years with the Milwaukee Brewers. He ended his career with the all-time lead in home runs at 755, and he still holds the all-time mark for runs batted in with 2,297. But he didn't fade into retirement. Here's longtime baseball announcer and host on WGN Radio, Andy Mazer.
We're losing a lot. I mean, we're losing a community leader. I mean, this is a guy that, again, understood his responsibility. There's a lot of people that shy away from that role model status, but he was not one of those people.
After his final year in Milwaukee, Aaron asked that instead of a personal farewell gift, he wanted a fund in his name to help kids in that city. It's now known as the Hank Aaron Chasing the Dream Fund, and it helps low-income children in Milwaukee between 9 to 12 years old. After his playing days, he was one of the first minorities in upper management when he was named the Vice President of Player Development for the Atlanta Braves, and he became a successful businessman. And then in 2002, President George W. Bush gave Hammerin' Hank the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Hank Aaron overcame poverty and racism to become one of the most accomplished baseball players of all time. When I was in the ballpark, he said, I felt like I was surrounded by angels, and I had God's hand on my shoulder. By steadily pursuing his calling in the face of unreasoning hatred, Hank Aaron has proven himself a great human being, as well as a great athlete.
The calling to help others extended to just weeks ago for Aaron. He received the COVID-19 vaccine, saying, quote, it's just a small thing that can help zillions of people in this country. And as he told our NewsNation station in Birmingham, Alabama years ago, Henry Aaron wants to be remembered for impacting lives.
He was successful at baseball, or successful in automobile business, or successful in food business, or whatever it was, but he gave back. That's the most important thing. We have to learn the most important thing is to give and to give back.
Hammerin' Hank Aaron, not only a giant on the diamond, but a trailblazer in life as well. Hank Aaron was 86 years old. Aaron Nolan, NewsNation, Chicago.
Wow, what a man, what a life, what a difference he has made. I spoke earlier today with sportscaster Bob Costas about Hank Aaron's legendary career on and off the field. Bob Costas, it is always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Marnie.
When you think of all of the great Hank Aaron moments, many remember 1974, of course, and Aaron is on the heels of Babe Ruth's record. I mean, just chomping at the bit. But he's also at the same time getting death threats and racist letters. Walk us back through that day and what you remember about those moments.
Well, the context. Baseball records matter more than records in other sports. Even avid basketball fans don't know what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's lifetime total is, or they'd be surprised to learn that Karl Malone scored more points than Michael Jordan. They don't know what Jimmy Brown's record was before this guy or that broke it. But in baseball, there are these milestone numbers. Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak, whatever, Lou Gehrig's record before Cal Ripken went past it. And perhaps the greatest of all was Babe Ruth's career record of 714 home runs. Hank Aaron was a tremendous baseball player. There's no question about that. But also in that time and place, a huge portion of America didn't want to see him break that record. Not just because Babe Ruth was iconic. Some people didn't want Roger Maris to break his single season record in 1961. Maris, like Ruth, was white, but they just didn't believe he was a worthy enough player to be the guy to surpass that record. No one doubted Hank Aaron's worthiness as a player. So the resistance, therefore, was a matter of racism. And he heard about it. Countless letters filled with the ugliest hate speech and much of it threatening violence, to the point where he had to have FBI protection for himself and for his family as he drew closer and closer to the record. Hank is a humble guy who never called attention to himself. And I came to believe through my conversations with him over the years that when he received this kind of hatred, that is what increased his resolve to break the record more as a matter of principle than as a matter of personal glory. Of course, in the end, he wins the day, not just as a player, but as a person. And I don't know of any baseball player, and I've been around almost all of the Hall of Famers, I don't know of any player who was more respected. In fact, the respect for him passed over into reverence, not just on the part of fans, but on the part of every other baseball legend. He held a place separate and apart from almost all of them.
And isn't it also true that in that moment when he hit the home run, the fans come rushing on the field, and it was such an exuberant moment, but also he was concerned because of what had happened?
Yes, he was very concerned. They'd heard talk of perhaps people, snipers, whatever it might be. There was extra security. He had a security person and someone from the FBI traveling with him. He was concerned about his children, his mother and father. And one of the people who made her way onto the field almost as soon as he crossed home plate was his mom. And as he put it, she put me in as tight a hug as I have ever felt in my life. And Hank was a stoic man, not given to outward displays of emotion, but the emotion he felt in that moment was as much relief as anything else. And there were tears in his eyes on that night as well. And when you watch the footage of him rounding the bases, it's worth noting, in contrast to a lot of athletes today who will self-celebrate the most minor of achievements, call attention to themselves, confusing exhibitionism with style. Hank Aaron just broke the most revered record in all the sports, and he's rounding the bases the same way he did on home run number 215, not 715, with class and grace. And as he rounded the bases, the Dodger players wanted to shake his hand. That was the respect that he had.
And that is why he is a legend. And he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, Bob, as you know, in 1982. Even some of baseball's greatest players just wanted to be around him, be in his presence. Yes. What was it about him that set him apart from all others as a baseball player?
Well, he's an elite player. There are others that are on the short list of the greats that you could make a case for Mount Rushmore. So it wasn't his playing ability alone. The two guys behind me, this is the Major League Baseball's studio 24/7 backdrop that you're looking at. So the two guys behind me, Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle, were great contemporary players. What set Hank apart was his position as a legitimate civil rights hero, the sociological significance of what he did. Both George W. Bush and Barack Obama put out statements today of appreciation for Hank Aaron. I wouldn't be surprised if President Clinton didn't do the same, because he and Hank were also very close. Hank's importance, like the man he idolized, Jackie Robinson, Hank's importance transcended baseball. And I think that, as much as anything else, is what set him apart. But something else just about him as a person, Marnie, you will seldom see in any walk of life that level of greatness equaled by the same level of humility. He was just a deeply humble person who never called attention to himself and was kind and gracious to everyone who crossed his path.
Bob Costas, so well put, and for all of those reasons, he is one that we will remember, and his legacy will live on, even in the middle of a global pandemic. Before his death, he got the COVID-19 vaccine with his wife to show people, especially those in the Black community, that it's important and that you can trust it. Just incredible. Bob, always great to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marnie. Take care.
You too. I think you talk about Hank Aaron and the legacy he left behind for hours and hours
the whole
and
show
days,
tonight. No,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, it really is remarkable. What stood out to you? Because I know you have a lot of thoughts on it.
No, number one, there was some guy I did an interview earlier today that we're going to run later in the show, and a few guys here on the behind-the-scenes crew came up and said, we had a chance to meet him or work with him in some capacity, and what Bob just said was incredibly true. Gracious, warm, authentic, humble, unassuming. They were in awe. He's this giant, and could not have been just a nicer man in addition to being this extraordinary ball player. But number two, it was devastating to hear in Aaron's piece that moment, that record he broke, and I couldn't enjoy it because of the hate and the security that had to be around me because of it. That's devastating to hear that in that moment from him. But also, what Bob pointed out, it was a personal thing as well as an athletic thing, and I think there's a lesson to be learned from that. Just an extraordinary life.
Right, and it's nice tonight to be able to celebrate it. For those who don't follow baseball, that is someone outside of the game of baseball who has left a mark on this world.
Absolutely. Sleep well, sir. Sleep well.